Hi there, I'm going to talk today about the luxury trap, which is a great phrase I hadn't actually come across until recently. I've just been listening to the book Sapiens, quite a famous book. I'd love to remember the name of the author, but you can look him up. If you look for his book, you'll find his name. Noah Harari something. Anyway, nearly there. And in this book he talks about, mostly he's talking about, at the moment in the book, he's talking about kind of prehistoric man, Homo sapiens, and their progression from being hunter-gatherers to being farmers, and how that put them into a luxury trap, really, as he describes it, because once they stopped and started farming, they started to have children more frequently, for example, so they had more mouths to feed, so they had to keep farming more. And even though, there was more ill health in those children, they still the births outweighed the deaths, which is of course pretty much where it all started, didn't it? And we're in a bit of a state with that right now, aren't we? And that the births outweigh the deaths in our world, and it's getting busier and busier. But that was kind of a trap then, because once you've set up your lifestyle, for the hunter-gatherers moving to be farmers, to be settlers, and then discovering that they couldn't really go back. And also because I think it's so gradual, isn't it? That will have been so gradual for that population, who will have started off, just gradually, let's plant a bit of wheat, let's stay here, there seems to be food here, let's plant some wheat, and gradually over generations, they've kind of got stuck in this place where they can't go back. There's no way to go back to being a hunter-gatherer from that place, because you've set up a certain level of luxury that you now think you need. So you've got a house, and you lived without a house for millennia, but apparently now you need a house because you've now got a house, and it seems like you need that to be okay. And of course, the generations who had gone before just gradually became more and more accustomed to having the house. But what I see about this for high achievers is that once we've established a lifestyle, it's very difficult to escape that. Unless, something dramatic happens, like what happened to me. When I burnt out, I had a really high-paying job as a primary school head teacher. When I burnt out, I went to earning a lot less and had to really change my lifestyle quite dramatically. And that turned out to be okay. More okay than I thought it would ever be. I thought I needed all these things in my life to be okay. And that was one of the drivers that kept me working so hard and doing so much and getting further and further up the career ladder, was that I thought I needed all these things to be okay. And it turned out I didn't really, because I'd say I have very little now. I have, obviously I'm very fortunate. I live in England. I have a roof over my head. I have food on the table, etc. But compared to what I had before and what I thought I needed before, that has really changed. And in the book Sapiens, he gives an example from the modern day. A fresh-faced graduate who's done really well at college, university, whatever, comes out of that university, I feel like I'm telling my own story here, and thinks to themselves, I'll just work really, really hard, and then I'll retire when I'm 35 or 40. I think there's fairly few people that actually happens for. But then what happens is that as the wealth accumulates, the person starts to create a lifestyle around that wealth. So there's a house, there's then, by the time they get to 35 or 40, there's 2 kids to pay for, schooling for, there's university funds, there's a big mortgage, there's a lovely house, there's 2 cars outside that house, there's all the clubs and activities and things that the whole family are involved in. You can't go back from, it's very hard to go back from that. Now people do, don't they? People just go, I'm not doing this anymore. I hear about people, particularly in this country, they move from London to the middle of nowhere, live in a little shack virtually, and just let it all go. And I think that probably comes when somebody has a big insight really about this outside-in misunderstanding, because this is the trap that we're in. The trap is believing that we need all these things to make us feel okay. You know, we might believe we need so much money in the bank to feel secure. We want the size of house and the right number of cars outside that house so that we're not judged by other people. There's all these stories about it, none of which are true. None of which are true. That's the mind-blowing thing about this, is that none of it's true. It's not true that we need all these things to be okay. Our experience is created from the inside out. I'm just watching for puddles. There's a lot of them today. You can see them all there, look. It's been very wet here the last few days. It all works from the inside out, not the outside in. And what I mean by that is that our experience, our feelings, our emotional state is created from the inside out. It's our perspective on our life and our things and what we have and what we think we need. That's what's creating our experience. And of course the result is that creates our behaviour. If we think we need a lot of money in the bank or a certain size of house or a certain number of cars or whatever, then we will work really hard to make sure that's there. You know, I've worked with clients in the past who are just literally working to retire. That's the plan. If I work really hard now, really hard, and I think financial advisors, bless you all, but I think some guidance from some financial advisors may have caused this problem, is that I just work really hard and I put loads and loads of money in my pension, and then I can retire when I'm 50 or 55 or 60 or whatever they might want. And you know, why? Why do we think that we're going to be happy then? Why are we waiting to be happy then? You know, it's a long time to wait, isn't it? And to be fair, I mean, I can't imagine retiring. It's not anything that ever enters my head, because I'm enjoying the present moment far too much. But this drive to have this apparent security from the outside is what leads to burnout. It does. It's why people are working all the hours that God sends and keeping going and keeping going. Now, what's really interesting is that this is not an invitation to sell everything and move to live in a little shack in the countryside at all. However, what you might notice, especially if you come on a journey with me, is that you just seem to be a lot less bothered by stuff. Like, I mean, I used to actually spend a day going shopping in Leeds to buy clothes, and I literally can't imagine anything worse now. If I need to buy something because something's like worn out, then it's a necessity rather than a pleasure. You know, and doesn't mean you might not still enjoy shopping, but what you might notice is that you just start to go, oh, I don't really need any more of that. I don't need a new one of those. And I don't really need that to change for me to be okay. And I think in the material world, it's really interesting. I think for me, one of the insight creating aspects of this was the motorhome, because when we go in the motorhome, I take very little, you know, basic clothes, and we've stayed in the motorhome for 3 weeks solid before, and I haven't needed anything in my house. And I go back to my house and I just think, there's a lot of stuff in this house, isn't there, that I don't really need? And it blows my mind a little bit, really, how much stuff there is in that house that I just don't need it. Just don't need any of it. It's really amazing. So it's amazing to see that. It really is. So yeah, that's kind of what happens. So check out, you know, are you in the pleasure trap? Does it look like you have to keep going and keep going and keep going to get all these outside things, material things, to be okay? And you know, how much is our self-worth connected to that? Because that would be the other thing that I would be thinking about here, is that how much of that is because our self-worth looks to be dependent on having all this stuff. You know, I'm only worthy if I've got a wardrobe full of the right clothes or the right number of cars or whatever. So definitely something to ponder, I think. And you know, if you're noticing that this is resonating, then the Thriving Woman approach might just be for you. You know, it's an approach I've developed from my learnings over the last few years, the learnings that have completely changed my life and my levels of joy and my levels of peace and my ability to just do things in life like I've never been so productive and so creative as I am now. And that's what the Thriving Woman approach brings to light. So check out my website if you want to find out more about that. Anyway, it's vaguely dry today in the UK, so that's good. Have an absolutely beautiful day. I hope that we connect at some point. Take care. Lots of love.